Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of LT's Laser Lancer Review. Today we'll be talking about modernization in the Middle East and who accepted and who pushed back with it, really looking at the Middle East post-1945 for the most part. This video will not have the Palestinian-Israeli conflict because there's just so much going on there. That will be in a separate video. So here we go. So, modernization in the Middle East. What is modernization? So, it is the process of change to modernize. Countries respond and view modernization differently. Some cultures and countries see it as a threat, others see it as needs to be met. And this affects families, gender roles, education, religion, and government. And another word that's always normally associated with modernization is going to be westernization. So westernization is the Western influence on the rest of the world. What I mean by that, I don't mean like cowboys and the wild, wild west. No, I mean Western Europe and America. Their influence on the rest of the world, those enlightened ideas, capitalism, everything that makes the West the West. Western domination of worldwide mass media has a huge effect. An example is Mickey Mouse is universally recognized anywhere, and I love this picture I found. It is a KFC outside the pyramids of Egypt. I mean, come on. Can't get more Western than that. So some examples. Modernization in the Muslim world. We're going to see it's accepted by Kemal Ataturk. He's going to westernize Turkey after World War I in the 1920s. So there's going to be equal rights given to women, and he is going to adapt the European system for society, for education, and even what people would wear. He outlawed the fezzes. Those are the red hats they would wear beforehand. He was all about westernizing Turkey so they can be ahead of the curve, which for the most part was a big success. It's going to be rejected by Ayatollah Khomeini, in Iran. Khomeini is going to reject it because the corrupt government that was in place there by the U.S. and Great Britain just more wanted their oil, and the West wanted the oil, and the lower class of Iran not feeling like their voice was heard and starving and being tortured by that government is going to bring extreme Islam to Iran. It's going to lead to the Iran hostage crisis in 1979. 60 American diplomats and citizens are going to be held for 444 days. It's going to be a really nasty situation. On a side note, if you'd want to watch an amazing movie about that, watch Argo. Very well done movie. But those are going to be two examples of where modernization is accepted and where it is rejected. So we're going to see the rise of Islamic fundamentalism. Please study this a little bit more outside this video. Don't just rely on this video. It's really going to start in the 1970s, where a number of Muslims are going to oppose westernization. They wanted to apply Islamic principles to the problems of their nations. And the big examples around this time is going to be Libya, Algeria, and Afghanistan. In Libya, Gaddafi is going to establish a government based on Islamic principles. He is going to support revolutionary organizations and activities throughout the Middle East and around the world. He's going to renounce terrorism in 1999, but he's going to be very much a dictator himself, and he's going to be overthrown by his people in 2010. And then we're also going to see that in Afghanistan. After the Soviet invasion, they're going to want to strengthen their Afghani government. After the Soviet withdrawal, it's going to be torn by civil war, and the Islamic group, the Taliban, is going to seize power in 96 and set up that Islamic government. So again, please, 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 please make sure you study more about Islamic fundamentalism in the Middle East post-1945. And last but not least, terrorism. So normally if you ask the average American what they know about the Middle East today, not saying it's right or wrong, but just what they know, they're either going to say oil or terrorism. So, terrorism, what is it? It's the unlawful use of violence against civilians for political gains. It's important to know that the Middle East did not invent terrorism. It's been around for a very long time, but that is mainly not the main means, I shouldn't say it like that, but a very small part of the population uses terrorism in the Middle East to get their message across. and groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS, those are not all the Muslims in the Middle East, not by a long shot. That is 1% of them. So please make sure you know that while we're going through this. So, first one I want to talk about, and I need everyone to listen to me right now. This group has nothing to do with the Middle East. But since we're talking about terrorism, I had to make sure you still knew this because there might be a question on them in the multiple choice section of the regions. The IRA is the Irish Republican Army, and they're going to want British interference out of Ireland. They are going to use bombs, terrorism, car bombs to drive the British out. Not in the Middle East. Do not associate them with the Middle East. Please don't associate them with the Middle East. Just part of the terrorism. So, we can get that out of the frame. The big ones. Al-Qaeda, they're going to be radical Islamic beliefs that encourage extreme attacks on Western societies. And then what we're going to see come out of Al-Qaeda, this group said Al-Qaeda wasn't doing enough, is ISIS, and they're going to be a more violent and rigid extreme group of radical Islam. Like I said, they come out of Al-Qaeda. They're going to declare its own Islamic State by taking over parts of Syria and Iraq in around 2010, 2011, 2012. So not that long ago. And some examples of attacks, the very famous one is the 9/11 attacks, where Al-Qaeda attackers carried out suicide attacks in the United States. And then we have seen in the early 2010s, ISIS attacks on Europe, and France was hit the most. And this part of history, it's not over yet. We don't know how this ends. So that was modernization in the Middle East. People who accepted it, people who rejected it. Please, 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 please make sure you study more on this. Use the readings on Schoology. Don't just go off this video. And as always, we've got to end with a fun fact. Our fun fact that I just learned today. Negative 40 degrees is when Celsius and Fahrenheit are at the same. So as you may or may not know, Celsius and Fahrenheit are two different ways to measure temperature, and they're different numbers. But when it's negative 40, that's when they're exactly the same. So there you go. That's your fun fact. All right, everybody. As always, I've been LT, and we will see you next time.